Nebraska fans, we know who we are as a football team now. I just interviewed Coach Bill Bush a week ago. If you missed it, go back and check it out. But he said, Adam, 8 games into the season, you pretty much know who you are. We pretty much know who we are. Who are we? What are our strengths? What do we need to improve on the most? What surprises me? What do I like? What do I'm not so crazy about? What needs to be addressed sooner rather than later? Who is Nebraska football? And I'm not going to lie to you. Part of who we are is good. Part of it surprises me. Also, college football officiating. What is going on? It is flat out unacceptable. It's a $1 billion industry, and the level of officiating that we're getting as college football fans is not right. How do we fix it? How do we address it? Let's chat, shall we? Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net, also carrikerchronicles.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's where your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. It's just science. But if you're like me and you agree that something has to be done about college football officiating, the level of officiating that we're getting is just not acceptable. Again, I don't even know that I put it entirely on the refs. I put it on the system that they've been put in, what's been asked of them, what's been dictated to them. But it's just got to get better. And you agree with me, smash the like button. I was going to make a joke about the FBI and the mafia investigating the college football. No, that's in no way, shape, or form should that ever happen. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe and or ring that notification bell. I'm just going to be honest. It's going to be a wild November. If you don't want to miss any of the content we're putting out here, Nebraska could win all 4 games. They could lose all 4 games. Not just mathematically, theoretically, they could go anywhere from 6-6 to 10-2. Now, do I think it's realistic to lose all 4 and go 6-6? By God, we better not. Same token, 10-2 college football playoff conversation? Yeah, probably not. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. This team is a high ceiling, low floor team that is frankly pretty inconsistent. You don't really know what you're going to get out of them from week to week, game to game, quarter to quarter. All right, if you don't want to miss any of the stuff that's going to be going on in November, make sure you subscribe and or ring that notification bell, or if you just want to help us out here on the show, we surely do appreciate it. Now, who and what is Nebraska? This isn't a good thing. This isn't a bad thing. Maybe not all what I prefer, but it's not what it's been before. And I'll explain that. We are a team that now has the capability of winning one-score games. We have a much better record of one-score games this year than we have in previous years combined. But here's what I think of when I think of what I thought Matt Rhule's team was going to be. And I did talk about this on my Adam Carriker show on The Ticket about a week or 2 ago as well, but I'm going to go through it here because it's stuck in my mind and some things are worth repeating. Matt Rhule, his team's at Temple, his team's at Baylor, how he talks about how he wants to build teams. He wants to be blue collar, smash mouth, physical, hard nosed, run the ball, stop the run. That's what he wants. That's why Trev Alberts really wanted to hire him so badly and represent whatever institution that you're coaching at with class. That's what Nebraska people want. Blue collar, hardworking, smash mouth, physical. Like that's what Nebraska is. People of class and character across the state. Matt Rhule's a fit for that. What is Nebraska football this year? We're a team that's going to pass the ball, stop the pass. We are a team that isn't necessarily going to run the ball consistently or be uber physical. I'm not taking shots at anybody. I think this is fair to say. We're not necessarily a team that's going to be amongst the best in the country or the conference or whatever is stopping the run. We're not uber physical. We're not exactly what I thought we would be 3 years into Matt Rhule's tenure. Now, we're 6-2. We're better at winning one-score games. We're better on special teams. There are things that are better. There are things that are improved. We are much more disciplined. The turnovers and penalties are exponentially better. We were minus 17 in year 1 under Matt Rhule. We improved our turnover margin by plus 15 in year 2, and we're still minus 2. This year, we're in the plus department, in the turnover department. We're much better in penalty department. Like, there are improvements and things that are better than they've been. Not only under Rhule, but in a long time, going back to 8, 9, 10 years, dare I say. When I watch our team, initially I was going to say they remind me of an old Pac-12 team, because the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, but it does, but it doesn't. It's so confusing. But that's not true, because when the Pac-10 went to Pac-12, they added Colorado, which was really never good in the Pac-10 except for 1 year, or in the Pac-12, I should say. But they added Utah. Utah's physical. Utah wins in the trenches. They run the ball. They stop the run. They're really good at defense. Kyle Whittingham is one of the most underrated coaches in America. So I wouldn't compare us to like Pac-12 type teams simply because of Utah. I'm not saying we're soft. What I am saying is we currently right now remind me of an old school Pac-10 team. We're going to throw the ball. We're going to stop the run. All right, we're going to try to out-athlete, out-skill you, and beat you that way. Maybe not beat you up, maybe not run the ball, stop the run, even though we clearly have made a more concerted effort in our most recent game, all right, against Northwestern to get Emmett Johnson, the Big Ten's leading rusher, the ball. But that's not necessarily who we are. We're a team that when it comes to talent composite rankings, and I'm going to get to that here in a minute, we have the advantage. Almost every team we've played this year, with the exception of, well, Penn State, I don't know what's going on there, the not-so-happy valley, but basically Penn State, Michigan, USC, 9 times we have the advantage. And of our recent opponents, it's really not even close. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But Nebraska this year reminds me of an old-school Pac-10 team, a little bit more going to out-athlete you, going to finesse you, going to try to beat you through the air, pass first, things of that nature. That's what this team reminds me of this year. It's just not what I thought Matt Rhule's team would look like in year 3. Is that bad? I don't know. If you're going to win games in the Big Ten, it does start in the trenches. It absolutely starts in the trenches. You look back to the Rose Bowl back in yesteryear, the Pac-10 dominated the Big Ten champion. The Pac-10 champ and the Big Ten champ met in the Rose Bowl every year for years and years ago now. The Pac-10 had a decided advantage. The game was also played, in UCLA's home field, also in California, so they had that advantage every year too. We are a team when it comes to consistency or lack thereof. All right, we are a team that can score 68 points in a game or 6 points in a game. We're a team that can lose 24-6 to Minnesota, who just got dog walked by Iowa 41-3. And I said Minnesota's not a good football. They're not a bad football team, but they did not belong. They should not have beaten us. They didn't just beat us, they dominated us. Now I asked, was that an outlier game or not? We're a team that can score 68 points in a game, or we're a team that can score 6 points in a game. We're a team that can beat a top 25 Big 12 championship conference contender in Cincinnati, and we're a team that can go up to Minneapolis and lose to a Minnesota team that's going to go to a bowl game, but they're not great, and get curb stomped by them 24-6. We're a team that can shut another team out. And we're also a team that can give up almost 300 yards rushing and almost 9 yards per carry in a game, all in the same season. All these things happened this year and against FBS opponents. Everything I just outlined happened this year against FBS opponents. Some of the things I do think that would help us is being able to get after the quarterback more. We have 12 sacks on the year so far. We have allowed 26 so far, albeit 1 in our last game, which is an improvement, obviously. I just feel like we're the type of team who's found a way to win one-score games more often than not. I feel like we're going to have a lot of ugly wins for a while, but that's still a lot better than a lot of the one-score losses that we've had in recent years. And we'd sit there and be like, oh my gosh, what if we could just win these one-score games? Well, now we're winning them. Now they're ugly. It's not the toughest schedule under God's hot sun. In fact, next year's gets exponentially harder, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. But we are here right now. Let's talk about the here and now. I will pose this question to you. Do you think this year's Nebraska team would beat not last year's Nebraska team? I think it would be an interesting thing to watch. I think our advantage in turnovers, special teams, and the leadership and the actual mental toughness has been displayed at times, maybe not in Minneapolis, but at times, would be the difference maker. It's a fictitious, hypothetical matchup that'll never happen. I will say this. I heard this saying, and I just want to mention it real quick, because Matt Rhule and Nebraska looked a lot different from a toughness-wise versus Northwestern than Minnesota, but he talked about the entitlement in the Minnesota game. I'm going to leave that there after this. But discipline says, I love you too much or to let you keep going in the wrong direction, so I'm going to do whatever necessary to help you become better and get back on the right track. If we don't want entitlement to creep back in or be in or affect this program, then it comes down to discipline. Discipline comes from the coaches. All right, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. They are your local retaining wall and concrete experts. Nobody does it better, ladies and gentlemen. If you need this type of work done, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is the type of work you do, Jason Armstrong, the owner and operator of this company, is the guy you want to work for. Again, go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, shout out to Husker Auto Group. Husker Chevrolet and GMC have aggressive pricing on 2025 model Silverado and Sierras up to $11,000 off of MSRP. APR as low as 2.9% financing with approved credit. See dealer for details. Husker Chevrolet and GMC also has a great selection of 3/4 ton Silverado and Sierra trucks. Husker Chevrolet and GMC is locally owned and operated. Husker Auto Group is conveniently located off North 27th Street and I-80 in North Lincoln. Also available 24/7 at huskerautogroup.com. I will say this. I think my wife doesn't like it when I word it this way. The single best thing Matt Rhule did in the offseason was hire Mike Ekeler. With all due respect to everyone he brought in, all the changes he made, it was Mike Ekeler bringing him in. What do you think our record would be if our special teams wasn't amongst the very best in the country? We might not beat Northwestern. I said after Cincinnati, we might not have won that game. You look at Maryland, we might not have won that game. Kenneth Williams has been a difference maker. I love that walk-ons are still have a presence in college football. This dude walked on from right here in Lincoln, Nebraska. He really only got talked to by Matt Rhule because he saw him at a track meet. That's really it. Now he's out there making a difference. You got Archie Wilson, a freshman from Australia, halfway across the world from his family and everyone he knows, and he averaged 55.5 yards per punt in our last game. And he's also a monster when it comes to pinning opponents deep in the opponent's territory. And one of my favorite things about Ekeler, and I haven't heard anyone else mention this, before the season he had a press conference and he stood there and he said, if we're not playing well on special teams, you hold me accountable. You hold me accountable. I want to hear more of that from people at the University of Nebraska. If we're winning, you should get the praise. If we're not, you should be held accountable. If things aren't going well, there needs to be a pecking order. That's one of my favorite things about Mike Ekeler since he's gotten here that he said amongst a long list of things that I really, really like. So I broke down Nebraska the last 3 years, high school recruiting class rankings and transfer portal class rankings. I did it for Minnesota because we just played them and I got hammered that they're more talented than us. I'm not going to diatribe, okay, what the definition of talent is on this show because I've already done it multiple times. If you haven't heard it, go back and watch recent shows. Okay, but it's not close. By the way, when you go by recruiting rankings, transfer portal class rankings, high school class rankings, composite rankings, any of that, Minnesota, Northwestern, our most recent opponent, Iowa, who we're going to play at the end of the year, and we always have close games with, and Indiana just because, well, they're kind of killing everybody, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Other than Kurt Cignetti's a really good coach. I also did USC. So, over the last 3 years, I was going to do the last 4 years, but I looked at our recruiting class out of high school from 4 years ago. There was about 20 kids in that recruiting class. Only 5 of them are even still on the team. So maybe a fourth of the players from that recruiting class are still even on the team. So I went for the past 3 years. Okay, you look at our high school recruiting class rankings for the past 3 years. We were 20th, 18th, and 25th. So 2 top 20 classes and a top 25 class. The average of that is 21st ranked high school class in America. Let me just ask, is that where we're finishing in the rankings at the end of the year? Okay. All right, our transfer portal class average for the past 3 years is 27th. Now, we had a top 5 class last year. The year before that kind of throws off that average because it was 50th. All right, ranked recruiting class, transfer portal class in the country, and then 28th. So the average was 27th. You average those two things together, and we have the 21st average ranked incoming talent, if you want to add high school and transfer portal classes together. 21st in the country. You look at Minnesota, theirs is 39th. Their highest ranked recruiting class they've had in the past 3 years was 35th. Their lowest was 47th. You look at their highest ranked transfer portal class, it was 29th. Like, their highest ranked high school recruiting class was lower than our lowest ranked recruiting class out of high school in the past 3 years. You look at their highest ranked transfer portal class, it was 29th, 35th, 41st. Okay, their average composite between high school and transfer portal recruiting class rankings is 39th. Their high school classes over the past 3 years averaged 42nd in the country. Their transfer portal classes averaged 35th. You look at Northwestern, it's 79th between transfer portal class rankings and high school class rankings over the past 3 years put together. High school class rankings, 66th, 80th, 47th. Wow, that was a great year. All right, transfer portal class rankings, 69th, 121st, and 73rd. Okay, going over each of the past 3 years. So their transfer portal class rankings average 88th, high school 64th, the composite of those two together 79th. Iowa, their highest ranked recruiting class out of high school the past 3 years was 32nd. Again, our lowest, by the way, was 25th. That's their highest, was 32nd. Their transfer portal class, they had won 129th. Holy smokes. But 57th, 47th. So their high school class average recruiting rankings are 38th. Transfer portal classes over the past 3 years, 78th. Their average is 58th. Okay, which is actually lower than Minnesota, who is 39th between transfer portal class rankings and high school class rankings being wrapped together. Indiana, I did them for fun because they're killing everybody. High school class rankings, recruiting rankings the past 3 years. Last year, 49th. The year before, 65th. The year before, 68th. Their average is 61st over the past 3 years. Transfer portal class is kind of where they do a little bit better. 25th, 29th, and 19th. Their average is 24th. Their average composite ranking between transfer portal class and high school class incoming talent rankings is 43rd. Again, if you didn't remember, Nebraska's is 21st. I did do USC. USC, high school class rankings the past 3 years, 13th, 17th, and 8th. Average of 13th over the past 3 years. Transfer portal class was the same thing. 3rd, 19th, and 17th, so an average of 13th over the past 3 years. And then you average their transfer portal class and high school class rankings together, it's an average of 13th. They're 13th. Now, it's not just about recruiting. It's about development. You got to retain talent now. Much easier to leave, but retention, but development and scouting correctly. All right, in high school, I would say the major emphasis is on retention and developing players. You don't want to develop them as someone else take them, but you got to develop them. All right, with transfer portal, I would say scouting is number one. You got to scout the right guys. And it's not just about talent. It's not just about speed or size. It's about, are you a good fit? Are you a good fit? We've had a couple of offensive linemen come in the past couple years. Were they a good fit? I don't know. You look at Micah Mazuka, didn't play a lot. Okay, all right. Nebraska, in my opinion, needs a higher batting average when it comes to scouting transfer portal players. I hope that makes sense. A higher batting average when it comes to scouting transfer portal players and guys making sure that they make an impact. Okay, I would say that's a fair statement to make. Now, here's the other thing I did. I looked at Iowa, Northwestern, Minnesota, and Indiana, and so that's 4 schools over 3 years. So that's 12 high school recruiting classes between the 4 of those schools. 0 out of those 12 high school recruiting classes were ever ranked higher than Nebraska's. You look at the transfer portal. All right, 3 out of the most recent 12 transfer portal classes, again, between Iowa, Northwestern, Minnesota, and Iowa, 3 of them were ranked higher than Nebraska's. So 3 out of 12 is 25% of the time they had a higher ranked recruiting class or a higher ranked transfer portal class, which means 75% of the time we had the higher class. Out of high school, we batted 1,000. We beat them all. We were 12 for 12. They were 0 at 12. So if you want to put it all together between the 4 schools, 3 years, 12 high school recruiting classes, 12 transfer portal classes, that's 24 combined classes as compared to Nebraska. 3 out of those 24 transfer portal high school portal classes over the past 3 years for those 4 schools, 3 times they beat us. That's 12.5% of the time. That means 87.5% of the time we have the talent advantage. Just to be clear, I hope that all makes sense. USC, by the way, they beat us each of the past 3 years in high school recruiting rankings and each of the past 3 years in transfer portal recruiting rankings. They beat us 6 out of 6. Okay. So they're going to have the talent advantage on us. First time all year. Michigan had it on us a little bit, but they're going to have the clear-cut talent advantage on us. All right. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors real quick. 66 Auto Service and Lincoln. 66autoservice.com. They're located at 2405 P Street in good old Lincoln, Nebraska. Locally owned for 20 years. Ask for Dean Phelps. He's the owner. Eric or Jeff, when you go in, tell them that Adam sent you. They're all good dudes. You can trust what they say. They care about their customers, and they do a really good job. Nobody does it better than them. All right, they do great work at a very reasonable price. We now have kids who are driving, and it's where my family takes all of our vehicles in to get all of our vehicle work done. Everything from oil changes to engine replacements. They offer shuttle rides, loaner vehicles, financing as well if needed. Again, check them out at 66 Auto Service in Lincoln. That's 66autoservice.com. So when it comes to high ceiling, Nebraska's got it. As much as anybody, we're going to play the rest of the year. All right, low floor. Again, we could go anywhere from winning 10 games to 6 games, not win another game. We could possibly win every game the rest of the year, lose every game the rest of the year. I do think the truth falls somewhere in the middle. Now, let's be real. A lot of the teams in the college football playoff every year, they're at the top of the recruiting rankings, whether it be high school or transfer portal, so it matters. But it also matters how you develop. It also matters All right, what you emphasize. Do you emphasize skill positions? I think we built our team around the quarterback. You get a 5-star quarterback, you want to be able to utilize his talents. We built Nebraska around the quarterback. Well, the quarterback needs to be able to have time to throw. There needs to be a run game to complement. There needs to be a defense that can stop the run and get the opposing team off the field so they can't just run the clock, shorten the game so you can get your offense back out on the field. It all goes hand in hand. But I think Nebraska was built around our quarterback, and that's why we look the way that we do. Now, you look at teams like Penn State and you look at teams like Clemson, there's obviously more that goes into it. These are two of the top 10, if not top 5 rosters in America. By the way, nobody's happier about Penn State struggling this year than Clemson. Because nobody's talking about Clemson because everybody's talking about Penn State. And then you look at Vandy and Indiana. They're nowhere near the top 10, top 15 rosters, yet they're top 10, top 5, top 3 teams if you're Indiana in the entire country right now. I will say this, one of the few teams that has consistently lower high school recruiting rankings than every team I've talked about so far is Colorado, because Deion said, I don't care about you high school kids. I want to build through the portal. Kind of like Florida State, and that worked well 1 year for Florida State. All right, but look where those teams are at now. It has to be complementary. High school, transfer portal, development, things of that nature, guys who are a right fit, plus size, speed, talent, etc. It all goes hand in hand. Okay, so let's get through some of these pictures fairly quickly. Rob Zadiska, stuff he wants to discuss on his show at Doc Talk. The interior D-line needs to be a little bit more physical up front. The offensive line not getting much push. And it's amazing the amount of yards that Emmett Johnson gets without the amount of space that a running back would typically like to have. I do want to give a shout out to Rocco Spindler. All right, straight up broken finger. You can see it here, and he's still playing today. There's a close-up shot of the broken finger. If you're listening on the pod, it's completely broken. Look at Nebraska's wins in one-score games in 2025. 3 wins already. Nebraska's wins in one-score games in 2023, 2024 combined was 3 wins. The last time Nebraska won 3+ one-score games in a single season was 2016. I will say this, the rest of this season matters, whether we go to the college football playoff or not, because I want to go to the best bowl game possible. The family and I are probably going to go to the bowl game again like we did last year. New York was awesome. I'd like to go to someplace warm, though. Let's aim for Florida. Rhule, you listening? Let's aim for someplace in Florida. And I'm curious, who do you think the player of the game was versus Northwestern? Emmett Johnson, Donovan Jones, or Kenneth Williams? 3 great options, by the way. And I thought this was phenomenal. Mike Ekeler put this Kenneth Williams returning the opening kickoff of the second half back 95 yards for a touchdown. He goes, do you know how to spell fun? Win. Love this team. That was Mike Ekeler on X. Now, Rhule talked about how this team is not perfect in this post-game press conference, but they're 6-2. They have a great opportunity next week on national television. Got a couple of offensive linemen, Gunnar Katula, Teddy Prohaska, dealing with some injuries. He mentioned that as well. You got to develop depth, at positions. Rhule didn't seem pleased with the reffing. He can't say too much or he'll get fined. We'll chat about it here in a minute. He basically just said, and I quote, "We didn't get many breaks today. I'll leave it at that," end quote. And Rhule also talked about how 6 wins. He's not going to talk about 6 wins this year being the barometer. No, I've said all year, 8-4 is the floor. Well, I said 6-6 before the season, but then I said 8-4. Now, I'm not guaranteeing we're going to win 8 games. I'm saying it should be the floor based on the talent we possess and the not tough schedule that we have. This is the toughest part of our schedule, but none of these teams are infallible. Look at USC. Look at Iowa. They played some really good ball. There's some good teams, but they both have multiple losses as well. I'm not saying we're going to win. What I'm saying is if we can't go 500 in November, the floor should be 8-4 for the season. That's what I'm going to stick with on that. All right. I will say this. Just remember, anybody can be anybody on any given day. Just like that movie, Any Given Sunday, back in the day. I thought this was interesting as well. You have to stay in your gap as a D lineman. It's a non-negotiable. That was Michael Rose-Ivy on his Twitter account. Rob Zadiska quote tweeted that on his Twitter account. Great. We got to be more gap sound up front and in our run game and in our run fits. Now, the linebackers were better in the run fits. Rhule said they didn't tackle the best during the game again, but their run fits were better, but the D linemen have to stay in their gaps. I will say this. I mentioned that Minnesota was not a great team. So how does a team that's not great and looks the way they did versus Iowa just curb stop and mollywop us? Because there's so much more that goes into us than just the physical ability under those pads. It's the 6 inches inside that helmet between the ears from the neck up and how everything comes together from development, from coaching to prep to in-game adjustments to toughness to trenches to tackling to blocking. It all comes together. That's why Penn State and Clemson have the seasons they do. That's why Nebraska is highly entertaining to watch. My Lord, up and down, not boring to watch, sometimes frustrating to watch. But that's why Indiana and Vanderbilt, all of a sudden, who have decent rosters, but they don't have top 5, top 10 rosters, but they're up there in the top 5 and top 10, and they've earned it. Shout out to Nebraska football and volleyball. They both beat Northwestern this past weekend. All right, I thought this was a pretty cool shot of the stands, the fans, Memorial Stadium on Saturday. Look at that sea of red. It's pretty cool. Mo Berry, former Nebraska black shirt, Husker captain. He was obviously there as well. He picked out on his Twitter account. Wasserman on X said, though Nebraska fans aren't pleased with what they saw, the old Corn Huskers would probably lose that game. Huge win to keep this season afloat. It's a good way to put it. It's not beautiful. We are a flawed team, but we are a team that's young, the youngest in the Big Ten, could potentially be exponentially better next year if we can retain a lot of our skill guys and exponentially improve in the trenches. The defensive line is young. They get another year of experience. They get another year in the weight room. The offensive line, there's some young guys coming up. If you got to attack the transfer portal and for the offensive line, I'm fine with that. We have the skill guys. Keep them coming back. Let the defensive line develop. Keep playing well in the back end of the secondary. And let's improve in the trenches up front, especially on the offensive side of the ball. For now, there's going to be a lot of ugly, close games. As long as we keep winning way more than we lose. I've looked at Nebraska through the lens all year of an 8, maybe 9 win team. 7 wins, I don't care if we have 7 wins. I'm not going to sit here and all of a sudden say it's acceptable. Why? Because we had 7 last year. We're supposed to get better. You hear about this year 3 jump. Well, let's at least take a step in the right direction. Even if we don't have a jump, 8 wins should be the floor. 8 wins, including the bowl game, even the bowl game. If we're 7-5 and win the bowl game, I'll count it. A little cheat there. I meant 8-4 when I said it preseason, but it'll still count. I'll count it. 8-9 win team. And that's how I look at this, which is why everything isn't live or die with me every Saturday. If this was supposed to be a college football playoff team, I'd react much differently and much stronger. And here, Big Red Game Plan on X says, you have a lot more confidence than I do. Look at the last 4 games, 16 quarters, 10 of them were embarrassing. I'm wavering on my prediction. Hey, to each their own. All right, here's another one. We have talented players, but in the Big Ten, games are won in the trenches. We will never take the next step unless Matt Rhule starts to recruit, focus, and pay the guys in the trenches. He goes on to say, kind of, why doesn't Matt Rhule do this? Why doesn't he understand this? He does understand. He does understand it. It's not that he doesn't. I think we got a talented quarterback. We wanted to build around him. I think now going forward, it's unequivocally undebatable where we need to improve. I'm not taking a shot at those guys. Those guys work hard and they played better versus Northwestern, but we got to be more consistent. Now you look at the Big Ten quarterback grades. Dylan Raiola got a B+ this past week. Iowa quarterback Mark Gronowski got an A-. Iowa throws the ball, and they play pretty good football too. So shout out to them. Performance tiers from week 9. Nebraska was actually second from the top at satisfied. All right, take that for what it's worth. Minnesota was clear down at awful. You never know what these kids are going to give you week to week in college football. Matt Rhule he now has more one-score wins than Scott Frost. He has 6. Scott Frost had 5. You look at the game-winning touchdown drive for Dylan Raiola. All right, 3rd and 7, completion for 7 yards. 3rd and 7, completion for 19 yards. 3rd and 7, completion for 13 yards. 3rd and 5, completion for 7 yards. And Matt Rhule said after the game, and I quote, "I thought it was his best game in terms of poise and presence," end quote. That's Matt Rhule. And that was after throwing an interception. Raiola led us down the field. No, he's got to get better. He's got to improve. He's not elite yet, but he's got elite talent. And I'm starting to see him as maybe a 4th quarter type player. In the meantime, just keep getting better. All right, and just so you know, this thing about Matt Rhule, it's under the table, like it's under the table as in it's not being discussed much right now, but it's not completely gone away. Nebraska's Matt Rhule is a favorite to be Penn State's next head coach. Rhule is favored at 35%, followed by Ole Miss's Lane Kiffin at 14%, and there's more guys after that, from Kalen DeBoer to Mike Elko. Although Lane Kiffin, he's probably going to get a big-time offer from Florida. Hey, let's play football, but just know this is still there. Okay. The Big Ten should be absolutely embarrassed by the way this game was officiated. Multiple game-changing missed calls both ways. Hey, FBI, I have information on a criminal enterprise fixing college football games out of Chicago. Let me know if you need more info. It's said in jest, but the integrity of the game is starting to be affected. And if you remember this, after review, Northwestern got the ball at the 25 on this catch. There's a screenshot of him clearly being tackled short. They got a touchdown later on in that drive. I'm going to say this again. I said it after the game in my gut reaction. There needs to be accountability. referees need to have the ability and the opportunity to explain themselves in press conferences. It actually would behoove them to have an opportunity to explain themselves, because when you get no answer from somebody, whether it's in a game, a setting of competition, or in life, that's the most frustrating thing. No answer is the most frustrating thing. At least allow them to explain themselves. Okay, let's also have clear-cut rules so that the SEC officials are focusing on the same thing as Big Ten officials, as ACC officials, as Big 12 officials, as G5 officials, instead of having every conference focusing on different things with their different officials inside their own conference, especially when you have cross-conference play and officials are now officiating different conference games. It doesn't make any sense. It needs to be full-time officials. This is their full-time job. This is a billion-dollar industry, because that's not the case right now. There needs to be a consistency across the board. There needs to be accountability publicly, which is actually an opportunity to say, hey, this is what I was thinking. And then the public, and there's even people who think we should be able to listen to their conversations throughout the game. I think being more open is good. I don't know about being able to hear everything being possibly good. But my point is, when it comes to the officiating, it's affecting the integrity of the game. You look at the FBI, the mafia, all this stuff that's happening in the NBA and just broke. The integrity of the game is going to start to be affected, and that's what you don't want, and that's what you cannot have when it comes to college football. Give these refs the opportunity to be the best refs they can be. Get the best people in there, educate them the best, make them full-time, make this their job. And if a teenager can sit in front and answer questions in front of the media after the game, so can the refs, if not at least just the white hat at the end of the game. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here are my questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answers in the comments below. These questions are brought to you by Husker Auto Group. Check them out at huskerautogroup.com. Also, Allen Capital Group. Check them out at allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com. A homegrown Nebraska business with offices in Grand Island, Ogallala, Omaha, and Scotts Bluff. Allen Capital Group has next-level solutions for next-level needs. They've helped me and my family take care of our finances for over a decade. Again, a lot like 6-to-6 Auto Service, highly knowledgeable, great integrity, legit care about the people that they're working for, and they do a great job. Check them out at allencapgroup.com. Here are my questions. Number one, do you feel the integrity of college football is starting to be affected by the unacceptable level of officiating? You can just put yes or no to all these questions. Just say yes or no. Number two, would you be happy, not thrilled, not jumping for joy, but happy if Nebraska went 500 in November, which would put us at 8-4 for the first time since 2016, and an opportunity for a 9th win since 2016 in our bowl game? Just say yes or no. And number three, do you steal, borrow, like I do, all right, Halloween candy from your kids? I got 6 kids. There's plenty of candy. Also, I call it the daddy tax. Go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the ball.